So friends, Rudy Giuliani is now an unindicted co-conspirator in a federal case in Washington, D.C., an indicted co-conspirator, a defendant in a RICO case in Georgia, and yet there are still no signs that Giuliani is cooperating with prosecutors. And that is a good thing. Why? Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, let me start with this basic proposition. Rudy Giuliani needs to be held accountable for his crimes. He's been indicted for being part of a RICO conspiracy with Donald Trump, for committing crimes to try to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in Georgia. You know, in recent days, we have seen headlines like this: from America's mayor to criminal defendant, Giuliani's long tumble. And this from CNN: Giuliani struggling under massive legal bills after defending Trump. And then there's this piece in the New York Times. Headline: Rudy revealed. And friends, in this piece, it turns out Giuliani actually predicted his own descent into crime and corruption. Listen to this quote from Giuliani himself back in 1988. Quote, "It's a rare individual in public office who does not eventually become personally corrupt," Giuliani said in 1988. The comment takes on new meaning when you read through the Georgia grand jury's indictment, Mr. Giuliani's first indictment as a defendant, but I can promise you, friends, it will not be his last. The details make it clear that the crusader of the 1980s and 90s has completely lost his ability to distinguish right from wrong. He has gone from a moral compass in a city teeming with corruption to a long ago leader who has descended into a moral void. So friends, let's try to tackle this question. Do we think Rudy Giuliani will ever decide to cooperate with prosecutors? Well, first of all, only Giuliani knows for sure, right? Only he knows if he's ready to make a change in his life, if he's ready to turn a corner, if he's ready to try to make right everything that he has done so wrong. But we can't answer that question. Only Giuliani can answer it for himself. I want to tackle the question from a prosecutor's perspective. Because here's the thing, friends. No matter how much a prosecutor might want the information, the evidence that a guy like Rudy Giuliani has, information about a bigger criminal fish, the biggest criminal fish, right? The big orange blowfish himself. There are some witnesses that prosecutors just can't clean up, figuratively speaking. Some witnesses who have done such damage to their credibility that prosecutors can't put them on the stand and in good conscience urge jurors to believe them. You know, it reminds me of a story, specifically something that an old homicide detective used to say to me. His name was Loren Ledman. He was a Metropolitan Police Department homicide detective in Washington, D.C. When I was a young prosecutor, he took me under his wing. Yes, he was a detective and I was a prosecutor, but in a very real sense. He taught me how to prosecute murder cases. He taught me how to work witnesses, difficult witnesses, compromised witnesses, to see whether it would make sense, it would even be possible to convert them into cooperating witnesses, to bring them on board, and to present them to a jury and urge jurors to believe them. And sometimes Detective Ledman and I would be kicking around the pros and cons, the wisdom of trying to bring somebody on board as a cooperator. And if the witness was just so bad and so dirty and so cruddy and had so compromised themselves, their credibility, their believability, Detective Ledman would always pull out this one saying. He would say, you know, Glenn, you can't polish a turd. Well, you know, Giuliani cannot be polished up. So why is it that Rudy Giuliani will likely never be a cooperating witness, will never be somebody the prosecutors will put on the stand and urge jurors to believe? Well, let's start with these three simple words. Truth isn't truth, right? There are three words that will tank somebody's credibility in a hurry. Truth isn't truth. Can you imagine Rudy Giuliani being put on the stand, being told to raise his right hand, being administered an oath? Sir, do you swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give in the case now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Well, yes, I do, says Giuliani. I swear to tell the truth. Oh, really? And yet to you, truth isn't truth. But friends, that's just for openers, because for Rudy Giuliani's lack of credibility, it gets so much worse. Do you remember the lies he told about Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman, the two Georgia State election workers, the mother and daughter? Giuliani actually accused these two women, these two Georgia State election workers, of stuffing ballot boxes, of committing all kinds of felonies. And he actually compared Shay and Ruby to drug dealers. Here's what Giuliani said about them. A week later, Mr. Giuliani made a presentation to the Georgia House of Representatives in which he accused two election workers, Shay and Ruby, of quite obviously, surreptitiously passing around USB ports as if they're vials of heroin or cocaine. Giuliani recently admitted in a civil court filing that he made false statements about those election workers. The picture Giuliani painted in the Georgia House of Representatives was as vivid as it was dishonest. And at the January 6th House Select Committee hearings, Ruby and Shay testified that Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump ruined their lives. And as the New York Times piece references, Giuliani has admitted that he lied about them, that he defamed them. He admitted it in writing, in a court filing, in the defamation lawsuit that those two women brought against him. Here's what Giuliani said. Defendant Giuliani concedes that the statements he made were defamatory, that the statements he made were false. And prosecutors are going to try to clean up Rudy Giuliani, try to polish him up, put him on the stand, and urge jurors to believe him? No. Prosecutors don't need him. They don't need his testimony to convict Trump. Prosecutors, I strongly suspect, don't want him. He needs to be a defendant. He needs to be tried. He needs to be convicted. He needs to be sentenced. And he needs to be punished, imprisoned for his crimes. Because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.